I can't believe you guys have done this to me. I told you guys to go vote for Spartacus, and you guys overwhelmingly went and voted for Paracelsus. How could you do this to me? But at the very least, I know I'm guaranteed to be able to talk about my GOAT Spartacus in next week's Low Star Legend video. But that's not who we gotta talk about today. I can't be salty the entire video. We're gonna be talking about Paracelsus, who actually really does live up to that title as a Low Star Legend. He might have been a little bit replaced by Asclepius right about now, because Asclepius kind of does all he does and more after his buff. But as I will be showing in the background of this video, Paracelsus does have some applications that Asclepius does not, and he does still have an incredibly powerful third skill that you really can't replace. Now, obviously, Paracelsus is going to have very diminishing returns if your box is heavily leaning towards Buster, but if you are a quick enjoyer or an arts enthusiast, then you go ahead and get this guy leveled up, because again, when you're trying to run teams with high team cost, sometimes you just need a Low Star Legends to fill in one of those slots. With that being said, if you guys enjoyed the Low Star Legends series and you just enjoy the daily FGO content, except for, well, yesterday, humor me on that one. W is literally the reason that I got into playing Arknight. Scotty is why I stayed, so I had to do something when W finally got her altered version on the NA server over there. So I had to do that, but usually daily FGO content. At least you're guaranteed to get a video a day, you know, whether it's FGO or an Arknights. But if you enjoy that, like on the video would be very much appreciated, and a subscription to the channel perhaps, as it is free and helps me out more than you know. With that being said, let's start diving into his kit, starting off with his hits. And actually, we're really not going to focus too much on his hits, because when are you really going to be using Paracelsus for his hits? Really, the entire reason you're going to be using this servant is for the NP and his skills. So we're just going to skip right over all of those hits, just scoot those off the screen, and we're going to start off with skill 1, and this is an absolute banger. It is an 80% battery, and that is it. Sometimes all you need is a absolutely massive batter to help supercharge you into your NP, and yes, this can be used with as a pen skill that can get you a 20% starting gauge to allow him to fire his NP with any CE in the game. So if you need bronze currency, silver, gold, lotto drops, which are going to be kind of important coming up, this guy can be very good for helping you clear a wave. Just to make sure it's only like assassins or berserkers, because this guy does not do a whole lot of damage. That is kind of the weakness for Paracelsus, that even though over someone like, say, Asclepius, he has the ability to be a wave clearer for you, he can only really do it against kind of weak enemies. But thankfully, a lot of free quests that are going to be featuring somebody like an assassin or berserker node, he's going to be able to clear with minimal buffs, pretty much just his own buffs and maybe like the charisma you get from Castoria, or I guess if you're playing on JP, if you get, say, Summer BB's, you know, arts charisma that she gives, you know, he can clear about like 30k HP enemies. Sometimes it's a roll, but face cards can clean that up. And it does make him very useful, especially the earlier that your box is. So 80% battery is always going to be very, very strong. The second skill is why he's particularly slanted towards arts teams, because he gives the entire party a 20% arts buff for 3 turns on a 7-turn cooldown. Do not worry, you're never getting past that cooldown. Once Paracelsus hits the field, he's either going to get wiped or you're plug suiting him out. So the long cooldowns on these skills, literally nobody cares, right? Unless they go ahead and give him some ridiculous buffs on the first and second skill, as of right now, does not matter. But do not let this fool you. He can still be good in quick teams, just because of how OP his third skill actually is. But this is why he does get a little bit more value in those arts teams. It kind of was the dichotomy between Paracelsus and Asclepius before Asclepius got his own arts buff. So now Asclepius is really good with quick teams, but also slants really well into arts teams if you don't have somebody like your own Castoria or something. But Paracelsus still has that nice spot in there. Because if you're a newer player and you don't know, maybe you're looking at this because you just started and you want to know why this 3-star servant is so good, getting that arts buff is not only going to increase the damage on your arts cards, but it's also going to increase the NP gain that your arts cards give. So you're actually refunding a little bit better, and God forbid you have to use an actual face card. Now you're going to be getting a little bit more refunded damage on said face card. But who am I kidding? The bread and butter of Paracelsus is his third skill. This skill is really OP once you upgrade it. So I implore you, as soon as you get this guy, get his bond and everything up, you know, make sure you get this guy to like max ascension and bring him into his strengthen and get this skill upgraded. Because sure, giving an ally a 3k guts that lasts for 3 turns, that's fine and all. That might have some applications if you're going into a challenge quest and say you're going to be trying to min turn it, and you know the boss is going to try to slam your guys and you don't have any way to protect them. This can be kind of nice, but in particular, the main effect you're wanting on this for farming is that 50% NP NP gain buff for 3 turns. That is not a small amount of NP gain. That is quite the amount that you are getting. Just to put this into perspective, Castoria's second skill gives you a 30% NP gain buff. 2 Castorias gives you 60%. This guy gives 50. He's almost giving you as much as 2 Castorias combined. That is a lot of NP gain, and why he's particularly good in quick setups, especially if you don't have your own Scotty. Now, I'm not sure how viable this is nowadays, but just to kind of give you another perspective of this, when the Scotty meta hit the NA side of things, I unfortunately did not pull Scotty. And it was one of those things that people were quitting over, but I found a way to get my units to loop without having my own Scotty, and Paracelsus was the main hero of that. Because Paracelsus plus a waiver kinda just became another Scotty. Because he was giving so much NP gain, my quick units were able to refund enough to just barely get by on most nodes. The only nodes where it was a little bit of a struggle were like Berserker nodes, where the refund is kind of a bit rougher, and you do really want that additional Scotty for that big quick buff. But I would not have made it through the Scotty meta if it wasn't for this skill in particular. It is an absolute lifesaver, and if you are a newer player and you do not have your main big support, that free waiver you get from Fuyuki is really strong, but he's only as strong as the guy you're going to pair with him, because waiver by himself is not going to equal a Castoria or a Scotty. He's going to need a little bit of extra backup, and that's where someone like Paracelsus really shines. The 1-2 punch of giving that 50% battery plus this guy coming in, giving you massive NP gain and potentially also a nice little arts buff for your arts units, that's not nothing. That is really, really strong. And then, like I mentioned before, his NP is nothing special. It doesn't hit very hard, but if your looper is not particularly great, maybe you have a more low-end looper, you know, some guy that's only really getting like 40% back on their NP and they really just can't get through all 3 of the nodes, Paracelsus being able to take out one of those nodes for you is an absolute lifesaver. I know it was for me when I was starting off the game. And even though he didn't have his NP upgraded, so people are going to be like, how did he take anything out? Keep in mind, nodes were also a lot weaker back in the day. I mean, some story fights, he'd be out there just trying to clear a guy with like 5k HP, you know? Some of them would have like 15,000, so that was still kind of in his wheelhouse. I like to think that the NP upgrade just put him in the wheelhouse of still kind of being able to just take out assassins and berserkers and kind of stay in his lane. But that, again, is not nothing. And like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, lottery is going to be coming up, and if you want to do some of those max CE setups where you have a lotto CE on every single servant, sometimes you can't afford to bring like 75 different 5-star servants because we just don't have the team cost for it. Still waiting for that quality of life upgrade where my team cost can actually just let me bring a full team of 5-star servants and 5-star CEs. That would make my life so much easier. I could actually use the servants and the CEs that I summon for. What a concept. But until then, this is unfortunately a fact of life in FGO. You have to play around team cost. And people like Paracelsus, and by extension, you know, your Asclepius and Jufu even, they really benefit from this because they are really, really strong and are at a low rarity. And I think that's where they are really at their premium, because they could have easily made somebody like Asclepius or Jufu a 4, or maybe even for Jufu, they could have snuck in a 5-star version. But keeping them 3 stars, keeping them low rarities, I think that is the key for some of these guys. And I have found sometimes, especially again during the Scotty meta, that I would need Paracelsus over somebody like Asclepius. Sure, Asclepius does give you the NP gain and the battery, but sometimes you just need that thick amount of NP gain to ensure that you're farming all of your nodes. And again, one thing Asclepius can't do is usually clear wave 1 for you, which does take a lot of the pressure off of your main farming servant, because now if they have their own battery, or say you're using somebody like Scotty who has the battery in reserve that's not tied to the buffs she's going to be giving your person, you can reserve those for the final node. So even if you refunded 0% NP, if you got your own 50% battery and Scotty's 50%, you're guaranteed to get through, even with the worst of loopers, which is just kind of nice. I mean, I guess it could also be somebody with a 30% battery and a 20% of pen skill, but you guys get the basic math. You understand what I'm getting at. Being able to not have to farm one additional node just takes a lot of pressure off your main farmer. So I highly recommend that you go ahead and get this guy leveled. If you're trying to worry about, you know, oh, well, do I have to fully skill max him? If you're really struggling and you're noticing that you're missing out on corner cases of like 98% versus 100% NP, you are going to want to go 10-10-10, but a lot of more modern farmers can handle like only having the 48% NP gain buff as opposed to having 50%. You know, they've been able to shoot the gap on that one just well enough that they can deal with a slight loss in NP, but I myself took this guy to 10-10-10 because I just use him so much. I like having the full 80% battery plus the pen skill to just ensure that he can can fire with any single CE in the game, and then just guaranteeing having that 50% NP gain, having that 20% arts buff, for that maximum refund on the arts cards and maximum amount of damage that I can squeeze out of that, because again, he's a low rarity character. I want to squeeze all the value I can out of him. But if you know that you're going to be starting him off with, say, like a 50% starting charge CE, you can leave his first skill at level 1, because at the very least, it's still at 55% battery. So you only need to take it to 10 or higher skill levels if you know that you're going to be using him with like no starting charge CE or something along those lines. I would prioritize the third skill, as I think the NP gain is the main thing you're getting out of this guy, and then move forward from there. But with all that being said, let me know you guys' thoughts in the comments down below. Do you have any special attachments to this guy like I do during the Scotty meta, him being my savior alongside Waver? Let me know in the comment section down below. And if any of you guys are freaky enough to have a Paracelsus that is grailed, I guess shoot off in the comments down below for why the heck you went ahead and did that. But hey, I'm not judging. And with that being said, I hope you guys have a nice rest of your day, and I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace, late guys.